No other tourist groups stop here at this river, but for me it's pretty special. It's the Jabbok River, the place where Jacob wrestled with the angel in Genesis chapter 32. He called it Penuel. I have seen the face of God and lived. It's also where he was named Israel, one who wrestles with God. So for me it's an important site, and for those who want, here is the talk I gave there. This, by the way, this is not a normal tourist site. You don't see tour buses stopping. This is a Steve Ray crazy place to stop. But for me, I love the biblical sites. I love going to places where I know things happened. Whether Jacob was right here or down a bit, we know he was because he was up in Haran, Turkey, which is that way, and he had to get to Israel and go down past Jerusalem and Hebron to get back home to Beersheba. He's been up there for 21 years, if I remember right, because remember he ran away because he cheated his brother Esau, and Esau was going to kill him because he stole his birthright. So he took off running, got all the way up to Haran, Turkey, to this direction north, and he fell in love with a girl named Rachel. So he said to Laban, see, the word Jacob means crook, deceiver, supplanter, somebody who he's always cheating and always crooked. So he goes up to Haran and he meets his match. His father-in-law Laban, who is his uncle, ends up being as big a crook as he is. So Jacob says, I love this girl Rachel. He said, work for me for 7 years and I'll give you my daughter Rachel. So he works for 7 years with the sheep. On the 7th year, he finally gets Rachel. He goes into the wedding night, sleeps with her, gets up in the morning and said, you're not Rachel, you're her ugly sister. Her sister's name was Leah, and it said that she was very plain. She had plain eyes. She was nothing to look at. Rachel was beautiful. She had beautiful form and eyes. Leah was very plain. He wakes up. How do you sleep with a woman on your wedding and not know it's your wife? I have no idea.
You're drunk.
The wine. So he wakes up and he says, you're not Rachel. You're Leah. You're the ugly one. And he goes and yells at his father-in-law. His father-in-law says, well, the oldest one has to get married first, so you got Leah. I want Rachel. He said you can have her for another 7 years of work. He ended up working another 7 years to get Rachel. Now and then he cheats his father-in-law because he finds a way. He says to his father-in-law, I would like to, I'll work for you, but I want to keep all the black sheep. Well, there weren't very many black sheep, just a couple. He said, okay, good. But then he found a way over the next 7 years to mate them so that almost all of them became black. He knew he wanted to go back to Israel, to his family, so he decides he's going to sneak out at night because he knows if he says goodbye to his father-in-law, there's no way he's going to let him leave with all those sheep. So in the middle of the night, he gets his 2 wives and all the kids he's got already, and he sneaks out at night from up there and he comes this way. Laban tries to stop him, but he gets away from Laban. He outsmarts Laban, and he gets here to this river. Now, he knows his brothers heard that he's coming, and his brother Esau, the last time he met him, says, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. He hears that Esau is coming up this way, and he's just over on the other side of this river. This is what a coward this guy is. He sends his wife and children ahead of him. He stays behind on this side where we are. He tells his wife, okay, you go first, take all the children, and may God bless you. He's hoping if Esau sees the beautiful kids in the family that he'll not try to do damage to him. So the children and the wives go across. He's here at night. And it was back in those days, bull rushes and things, and a man comes and he starts to wrestle with this guy. Why he's wrestling with him, it doesn't say. He wrestles all night. It's the Lord. It's God himself who's wrestling with Jacob in the form of an angel. He calls him the angel of the Lord. When you read in the Old Testament the angel of the Lord, it's usually referring to a pre-incarnate appearance of Christ called a theophany. And so he's wrestling all night, and finally at the morning comes, he said, I'm not going to let you go until you bless me. What's your name? And he says, why do you ask me my name? He said, I won't let you go till you'll bless me. So the angel blesses him, and he says, your name will now be Israel. Israel means one who wrestles with God. Israel, El means God, one who wrestles with God. And he also touched his hip, and the only way he beat Jacob because he touched his hip, And when one of his ligament came loose, all right, and from that day on, Jacob limped. But anyway, that's how he got the blessing and the name Israel. From that point on, if you do a statistical study, half the time he's called Jacob and half the time he's called Israel. It's his new name. And that's how the nation of Israel, they are the sons of Israel, who is Jacob. That's where the name came from. So you are at the place where the word Israel came into existence, where it was first the name Israel. So Jacob wrestles all night with the angel. I was going to read it to you, but it's kind of more fun to tell the story. And then he went across, and his brother didn't kill him. His brother accepted him, and they went back home. So that's what happened here. This is where the wrestling went all night long, and he named the place Penuel. The name of this place was called Penuel, which means I've seen God face to face and I survived. I lived to tell the story, because it says you never can see God, but Jacob said, I wrestled with God face to face and I lived. I survived it. So this is Penuel. That's what that means. So you are at a very biblical location. I love coming to places like this, especially when no other tourists come here. It's kind of special, I think, to see this. Now, also, in the reading today, we read about Mahanaim. David escaped from his son Absalom, went to Mahanaim. Mahanaim was on the shores of this river too. So at least two biblical events took place here. King David and Jacob, the cheat. Now, one last thing about Jacob. What I like about him is he's a crooked cheat. Always sneaky, wily, outsmarting people, cheating people. This is what his nature was. In fact, the word Jacob means supplanter and cheat, because when he came out, he had his hand, he was grabbing his brother's Esau's ankle, just like he's already just trying to get the advantage of people, So that the word Jacob means supplanter, crooked cheat. That's what the word Jacob means. So when God says, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that's how God identifies himself. I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and the cheat, the crook. And if God can be the God of Jacob, he can be the God of me. Think about that. We're sinners too. We got our problems, and it could be God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, the cheat, and Steve. So that's a nice way to think about it. Jacob fell asleep on his way on this journey, but I think it was on the journey there, the other way, and he had a dream of a ladder going into heaven, Jacob's ladder, and angels are going up and down on the ladder. And when you get to the book of John, chapter 1, I wrote a book on John. I love that gospel. When Jesus meets Nathanael, he's also the one who said, can anything good come out of Nazareth? But Jesus told him, he said, I saw you sitting under a fig tree. And Nathanael says, wow, you must be the Messiah, the one of God. And Jesus said, you're impressed that I saw you sitting under a fig tree? Wait until you see the angels going up and down on the Son of Man. That's a reference to Jacob. He's a reference all the way back to Jacob, the angels going up and down. And on the Son of Man, the ladder that Jacob saw, Jesus refers to as a Son of Man, angels going up and down. And what Jesus is saying, I am the bridge between heaven and earth. I'm the one mediator, because all the earth is sinful, God is holy. There's no way to bridge that gap unless the infinite Son of God comes down and becomes the bridge. The angels are now going up and down on the Son of Man. And he and the cross become the bridge where we now can have up and down to heaven with Christ. See, so all of this has also took place here on Jacob's way up, and then he wrestled with the angel on his way back down. So I think it's cool being here. New Testament. One is Paul is talking about the Israelites and the whole law, but that's the only time. But Jesus uses the word. When he sees Nathanael, he says, here is a man in whom there is no guile. Guile is the word used about Jacob. So really what he says is, here's an Israelite. Remember, his name is Israel. Jacob got the name Israel. He said, here is an Israelite in whom there is no Jacob. There is no guile or cheating and corruption. So this is how he said to Nathanael, you are an Israelite, but not like the guy who started the word Israel. You're an Israelite without the guile. So you're one without the Jacob in you. And so when you read that, most people just skip right over that. But if you read that in light of the Old Testament, those few verses are really rich. And they are based on what happened right here.